Category 6 doesn't exist, not officially. The Saffir-Simpson scale stops at Category 5 because scientists believed nothing stronger was possible. But climate change has made the impossible routine. Ocean temperatures are rising. Storms are intensifying. And meteorologists are now discussing whether we need a Category 6 for hurricanes with sustained winds over 192 miles per hour. Winds so strong they would obliterate entire cities. So what happens when a storm like that, a storm beyond anything we've ever prepared for, slams directly into the most densely populated city in America? What happens when New York City faces a Category 6 hurricane? New York has seen hurricanes before. Hurricane Sandy in 2012 caused massive damage, killed over 200 people, and cost $70 billion. But Sandy was barely a Category 2 when it hit. Winds topped out around 80 miles per hour. Imagine winds that are more than twice that speed. Imagine storm surge not of 14 feet but 40 feet. Imagine rain measured not in inches but in feet. That's what a Category 6 hurricane would bring. And New York City, with its 8 million residents crammed onto islands and coastlines, would face complete annihilation. Let's set the scene. It's late September, hurricane season. A tropical storm forms off the coast of Africa, which is normal. But this one is different. As it crosses the unusually warm Atlantic Ocean, it explodes in intensity. Within 72 hours, it's a Category 5 with winds at 180 miles per hour. Meteorologists watch in horror as it continues strengthening. 190 miles per hour. 200. 210. The storm is breaking records that don't even exist yet. And the projected path shows it heading directly for the northeastern United States. Directly for New York City. Evacuations are ordered. The mayor appears on every news channel, pleading with people to leave. But evacuating 8 million people isn't simple. Where do they go? The highways out of the city become parking lots within hours. The George Washington Bridge, the Lincoln Tunnel, the Holland Tunnel, all completely gridlocked. People sit in their cars, barely moving, watching the sky darken as the storm approaches. What do you think goes through their minds when they realize they're not going to make it out in time? Some people refuse to leave. They've weathered storms before. They think their building is strong enough. They don't understand what's coming. These aren't hurricane-force winds. These are winds that have never been measured in a populated area. Winds that can strip concrete from buildings and turn cars into projectiles. But they'll understand soon enough. The outer bands hit first. Rain begins falling, not in drops but in sheets. Visibility drops to zero. Winds pick up to 60, 70, 80 miles per hour. Trees that have stood in Central Park for 100 years are ripped from the ground, roots and all. Street signs become missiles. Parked cars are pushed down streets by the wind. And this is just the outer bands. The real storm hasn't even arrived yet. What do you think people trapped in their apartments feel when they look outside and see trees flying past their windows? Then the eye wall arrives. The meteorologists on TV stop talking. There are no words. Sustained winds of 210 miles per hour slam into lower Manhattan. Skyscrapers, even the newest ones built to withstand 150-mile-per-hour winds, are not designed for this. Windows explode inward across the entire city. Millions of shards of glass become shrapnel, slicing through anyone unlucky enough to be near a window. Office buildings, apartment towers, hotels, all of them lose their windows simultaneously. Rain and wind pour inside, flooding floors and destroying everything. But it's not just windows. The wind force is so extreme that it begins tearing pieces off buildings. Facades rip away. Air conditioning units are pulled from walls and hurled into neighboring structures. Rooftop equipment, water towers, satellite dishes, all of it becomes airborne debris. A water tower weighing several tons is lifted off a building in Midtown and crashes through the side of another skyscraper 20 stories up. What do you think the people on that floor experience when a water tower suddenly explodes through their wall? The storm surge is even worse. Category 6 hurricanes generate surge heights never seen before. As the hurricane approaches, the ocean rises 40 feet above normal levels. 40 feet? That's a 4-story building made of water. It slams into Lower Manhattan, the financial district, Battery Park. All of it vanishes under the surge. The water doesn't just flood streets. It rises faster than people can climb. Those who stayed in ground floor apartments find themselves underwater within minutes. Doors won't open because of the water pressure. Windows can't be broken fast enough. People drown in their own homes, trapped, unable to escape. What do you think goes through someone's mind in those final moments when they realize the water isn't going to stop rising? The subway system, New York's lifeline, becomes a death trap. The MTA tried to shut it down before the storm, but thousands of people were still in stations and tunnels when the surge hit. Water pours into subway entrances like waterfalls. It floods down staircases, through tunnels, filling the entire system. People on platforms try to run, but there's nowhere to go. The tunnels fill completely within 20 minutes. Trains are submerged. Anyone underground drowns. The death toll in the subway system alone reaches into the thousands. Do you think anyone could have imagined that the safest place during a normal storm, underground, would become a mass grave? Brooklyn and Queens fare no better. These boroughs, heavily populated and built on low-lying land, are completely inundated. Entire neighborhoods disappear underwater. Houses are ripped from foundations and swept inland. Cars float down streets like boats, crashing into each other and into buildings. Families who climb to second floors find that's not high enough. The water keeps rising. They break through to attics, then onto roofs. But the winds are so strong that staying on a roof means being blown off. What would you choose? Stay on the roof and get blown into the floodwaters, or stay inside and drown? Hospitals across the city are in crisis. Emergency generators kick on when the power grid fails, but generators are often in basements. When the basements flood, the generators drown. Hospitals go dark. Life support machines stop. Ventilators shut down. Patients who were stable minutes ago are now dying because there's no power. Doctors and nurses work by flashlight, manually pumping air into patients' lungs, doing chest compressions, trying desperately to save lives. But there are too many patients and not enough hands. What do you think a nurse feels when she has to choose which patient gets the manual ventilator and which one doesn't? The bridges, New York's connections to the rest of the world, are failing. The Verrazano-Narrows Bridge, the George Washington Bridge, the Brooklyn Bridge, all of them are being torn apart. The wind force is so extreme that suspension cables snap. Roadways twist and buckle. Sections of bridge deck are ripped away and thrown into the water below. Any cars still on the bridges when this happens plunge into the rivers. The drivers never stood a chance. What do you think someone in the passenger seat experiences when they feel the bridge disappearing beneath them? Fires break out across the city despite the flooding. Gas lines rupture. Sparks from downed power lines ignite the gas. Buildings explode. The fires spread rapidly, even in the rain, because the winds fan the flames. Entire blocks are burning. Fire trucks can't respond because the streets are underwater or blocked by debris. Firefighters watch helplessly as buildings burn with people trapped inside. What do you think it's like to be a firefighter, trained your entire career to save people, and now you can't even reach them? The airports are completely destroyed. JFK, LaGuardia, Newark, all of them are underwater. Planes that couldn't be evacuated are flipped upside down, shredded by the winds. Control towers collapse. Runways are buried under debris. It will be months, maybe years, before these airports can function again. And that means New York is cut off, no flights in, no flights out. Anyone who needs to leave is trapped. Communications infrastructure fails next. Cell towers are toppled by the winds. Underground fiber optic cables are flooded. Satellites can't penetrate the storm. New York goes dark in every sense. No power, no phones, no internet. 8 million people are trapped in a city being destroyed, and they have no way to call for help, no way to reach loved ones, no way to know what's happening beyond their immediate surroundings. What do you think isolation like that does to people psychologically? The storm finally passes after 6 hours. 6 hours of 200-mile-per-hour winds and 40-foot storm surge. When the eye moves past and the winds calm, Survivors emerge to find a city that no longer exists. Manhattan looks like a war zone. Skyscrapers are skeletal, their windows gone, their facades torn off. Streets are buried under 10 feet of debris. Cars are stacked on top of each other. Bodies are everywhere. Thousands of them. Some trapped in collapsed buildings. Some washed up on sidewalks. Some still floating in the floodwaters. What do you think it does to someone's mind to walk through their neighborhood and see that level of death? The death toll is unfathomable. In the first 24 hours, the confirmed dead number in the tens of thousands. But that's just those who can be found. Thousands more are missing, buried under rubble or swept out to sea. The final death toll, when it's calculated months later, exceeds 200,000. 200,000 people dead in one storm. It's the deadliest natural disaster in American history. Do you think the nation could ever recover from that psychologically? Survivors face a nightmare. There's no food. Grocery stores are destroyed or looted. There's no clean water. The city's water supply is contaminated with sewage and chemicals. There's no shelter. Buildings are unsafe to enter. FEMA tries to respond, but the scale is too large. They can't airlift enough supplies. They can't set up enough tents. Millions of people are displaced, wandering the ruins of their city, desperate for help that isn't coming fast enough. What do you think people do when they realize the government can't save them? Disease spreads rapidly. Bodies decompose in the heat, attracting rats and insects. Contaminated water causes outbreaks of cholera and typhoid. Survivors drink from puddles because they have no choice, and then they get sick. Hospitals, the few still standing, are overwhelmed. Antibiotics run out. People die from infections that would be trivial to treat under normal circumstances. What do you think it's like to survive a Category 6 hurricane only to die from drinking bad water 2 weeks later? The economic impact is apocalyptic. New York City is the financial capital of the world. Wall Street, the stock exchange, the Federal Reserve Bank, all of it is destroyed. The global economy, already interconnected and fragile, collapses. Stock markets crash worldwide. Banks fail. Currencies lose value. The disaster in New York triggers a global depression. What do you think happens to the world economy when the financial heart of America stops beating? Months later, the city is still in ruins. Debris removal has barely started. Bodies are still being found. Millions of people have left, resettling in other cities, other states. The population of New York has been cut in half. There's talk of rebuilding, but how do you rebuild after something like this? How do you convince people to return to a city that nature destroyed so completely? And here's the terrifying question. What happens when the next storm comes? Because climate change isn't stopping. Oceans are still warming. Hurricanes are still intensifying. Category 6 might not be a hypothetical for much longer. So what would you do? If you lived in New York and a Category 6 hurricane was bearing down, would you evacuate? Would you stay? Do you think you'd survive? And if you did survive, would you ever feel safe living on a coast again? If this scenario made you rethink living in a coastal city, leave a comment below telling me where you live and whether you'd evacuate or stay. And if you want more terrifying explorations of America's climate disasters, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. This is America Doom, where we explore the catastrophes that could reshape the United States. Drop a like if this made you look at hurricanes differently, and I'll see you in the next one. Stay prepared, because the storms are only getting stronger.